everyone, this video is going to walk you through how you can use Pressbooks as a tool to create open collaborative textbooks with your students. So to get started, depending on your institution, you may already have a Pressbooks instance that's associated with your educational institution. Or if you don't, you can also just create a Pressbooks account right through the Pressbooks website. So if you're on the main Pressbooks website, which is just pressbooks.com, you can go under the faculty authors and click find out more. And then you'll see there's an opportunity here to sign up. And this will take you to a form that you can fill out to register your Pressbooks account. So you can just put in your username and email address and your password, and then you can click next. And what will happen is it will then send you an email that's going to give you a link to activate your account. So when you click on the link, it will allow you to activate your account, and it will send you your username and password. And then once you've activated your account, you'll be able to log in. And when you log in, you'll see that there's a button to create a new book, which will bring you to another form that you'll fill in where you'll put the web address for the book, and then you'll be able to give your book a title. Just keep in mind that you can't actually change the web book address once you enter it, so make sure you pick an address that you'd like to stick with. You can always change the book title later. So once you put that information in, you can just click Create Book. And once you create your book, it's going to take you into the dashboard. And you'll notice here that it'll automatically create a couple of components of the book for you. So you'll see the books are typically organized into 3 sections. You'll have the front matter, your main body, and then the back matter. So by default, it will give you an introduction page, a first chapter, and then it will also add an appendix for you. And you can organize your book as well as add additional chapters just by going to the Organize tab here on the side. So typically, if you're going to be creating an open textbook with your students, you're most likely going to be using chapters. So what I would suggest is that you add a chapter for each of the different sections that you'd like your students to work on. So you can just go up to under Organize, you can click on Add Chapter, and then you'll have the option to give your chapter a title. And then you can modify any of the settings that you see here if you'd like to. And for now, you can just click Create, and that's going to allow you to create a chapter. So for the purposes of my course, my students were in a course called Beer Through the Ages. So they were each signed up for a beer that they were going to research over time. So what I did is I created a chapter for each of the different beer that they could sign up for. So each student had their own chapter in the book. So just to give you a sense, I'm going to flip over to what my course looked like. So you can see here, this was my dashboard, and basically I created a chapter for each of the different beer that students could sign up for. So essentially you can use the organizing tools to format your book, add as many chapters as you like. You can adjust the front matter, the back matter, basically organize it so that it's ready to go in the format that you would like. And then the next step is to add your students to your book. So you can just go into Users, and you'll see here there's an option to add new. So again, depending on the setup within your institution, you may already have an existing Pressbooks instance, in which case your students may already have an existing account, and you can just use their email to invite them to your book. Or, which was my case, my students didn't have existing Pressbooks accounts, so I created a username for them and an email. So all you have to do is type in a username and an email for the student, and then you can select the role that you would like your students to have. You can see if you go into the documentation for Pressbooks, there's a number of different options that each of these roles have. For my purposes, I used an author, which basically means they can edit their own chapters and pages, but they can't edit each other. So they can't delete any of the pages, which is good, and they can't edit each other. So they're only able to edit the chapters that they create or that they're assigned to. So that worked well for my purpose, but you can also explore some of the other roles. So basically, once you want to add a user, you're just going to click Add User. And what will happen is once you add the user, it will send them an email similar to the one that you received that will have an activation link. And they'll be going through the same process that you did to register for their account and then activate their account. The one thing to keep in mind is depending on how many students you have, this can be a bit of a tedious process as there's no opportunity right now to bulk upload or to add multiple students at a time. So in my case, I had 90 students, so it was a bit of a copying and pasting. But once you get all the students added, it's not so bad. So basically, you're just going to go through and add each of your students to your page. What will happen is the students actually have to activate their account before you can then assign them to a page. So for my purposes, as I mentioned, the students all signed up for a particular beer. And so what I did is once I created all of the chapters, I sent an invitation to all of my students, and then I went into each of the chapters and assigned each of them the appropriate student. So if you scroll down in each of your chapters, you'll see that there's an option here to select the owner. So from the drop down, you'll see a list of all your students that have activated their accounts, and then you can just select the student that you would like to be able to edit that chapter and click save. And again, depending on how many chapters you have in your book and how many students you have, again, this can be a bit of a manual, time-consuming process, but you only have to set it up once, and then once you're finished doing that, it works for the rest of the time that you're using the book. So what will happen from your student perspective is once they've registered, they've created their account and activated it, they'll be able to log in. And then when they get to their dashboard, they'll see a list of all the chapters, but they'll only be able to access the one that they've been assigned to. So the one that they're assigned to will be hyperlinked, and they'll be able to go in and edit that chapter. So when they edit the chapter, you'll see there is a visual editor that they can use, so very similar to Microsoft Word. They can add text, they can add images, all kinds of content, or they can also work in the text editor. So if they want to work sort of in HTML, they have the option of doing that. So basically your students can go through and add any content that they want within their own pages. There's also the option to add media, so they can upload images from their own computers. They can upload documents, which they can include. So you can see here they have the option of images, audio, or video, which they can upload and include in their chapters. Also, depending on the instance of your Pressbooks, they may also have the opportunity to use H5P. So essentially the students can go through and add any of the content that they'd like, and then it automatically saves every 5 minutes, but it's recommended that they continue to save as well. So they can go through, add any of their content. They can do this ongoing. So for my students, this was a project they worked on throughout the semester. So they continued to add to their chapter and revise it and edit it throughout the semester. At any time, if they want to have a look and see what it looks like, they can click on preview and they'll get a sense of how the book looks to the viewer. So I'll just pop into a chapter that actually has some content. So you can see basically what will happen. Again, they have the option to embed images, you can put video. They also have the option to use the interactive element. So if you see on this page, when I go to preview, this page is using H5P. So they actually have some interactive elements here where you can test your answers and create interactive pieces. The one thing that's nice as well is it also keeps a revision history, so you can go back and see the progression of the work that they've been doing on their chapters throughout the semester. And again, this is sort of what it's going to look like for them. They'll be able to make any changes they want, save those changes, and that's basically what it'll look like from the student perspective. So it works pretty much like a Microsoft Word document, so it might take a little bit for your students to get used to the interface, but once they do, it's fairly easy to navigate and to make their changes and add content to the book. So once your students have added all of their content to the book, again using the various tools that have been added, you then have the option, if you'd like to make it public, you can go into Organize and change it from private to public. And that means that you can now share the book publicly. So you can basically share the URL to your book. It'll be available publicly and openly, so anyone can now go in, click on read the book, and they'll be able to go through, read the various chapters in your book, and work through the material that is provided. So essentially, once it's totally published, anyone will be able to access it, and they'll have the ability to read the content that your students have produced as part of the book. You'll also, in addition to using the web book, you have the option to export your book as well. So if you'd like to, you can go into the export. You could export it in a number of different options, so things like a PDF or an EPUB. So again, you have the option to use these different formats to share the material as well. So what I really like about this tool is it's fairly easy to use, and what's great is at the end you now have a great resource that you can share openly. So it's an easy way for your students to be able to contribute individual chapters. You could also have your students work in teams as well and have them collaboratively edit different chapters in the book as well. Or in similar to my example, you could have each student work on a different chapter. So there's lots of flexibility in how you can use this tool. And the nice thing is that once you're done, you do have the option of making it public. So it's something that students can have as a takeaway and that they can share openly, and it can become a resource that other people can reuse and adapt as well. And for my purposes, it's going to be a reusable assignment. So the idea is each semester, students in my different sections will be able to continue to add to the books. So that's a basic overview of Pressbooks. There's a lot of really great resources online on how to use Pressbooks, so I've kind of just touched on the surface here, but there's some great tools in terms of allowing for peer review and including additional functionality. So I would encourage you to have a look at some of those resources as well.